Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into a new edition of the 365 Sports Newsletter, the Baylor edition. I'm Craig Smoak. Thank you for joining us as always. If you're watching the video, please hit that like and subscribe button. We would appreciate that here on the channel. But here to talk some Baylor Bears as we turn the page into the double-digit weeks of the season, the dog days of the 2025 season for the Baylor Bears. And it was starting to feel very unsure and uneven and uncomfortable and just not fun surrounding Baylor the last couple of times that we've talked to you. And so I wondered rolling into next week as we started to get into, for lack of a better term, kind of nut cutting time when it comes to bowl eligibility and big picture things with this football team. I was wondering how they were going to react to a game with not a lot of pressure externally or big picture wise, but certainly a lot of pressure in the very near term and in the macro level of this football program. A must win, as I said it was last week on various occasions. The UCF Knights rolling into town at 4-3 and 1-3 in Big 12 play for a team in Baylor that had lost a couple of games back to back and had done so in pretty dissatisfying fashion. I mean, you lose a couple games, it's never really fun, but I really got beat up good by TCU on the road. That's a rivalry game and one that you've lost more than you've won a lot over the last decade. And another one where you just felt you left feeling really, really uneasy about the direction of things. Then you turned right around and you got mollywopped by Cincinnati. And that's where we last left Baylor. Not a good place to be. Back-to-back losses that feel like you got blown out. And here they were at a point in the road where there's a month to go and you're getting down to where it's starting to become a question of whether or not you're even going to make a bowl game. And there's questions about your head coach and his future. And there's questions about just really kind of everything. And the only thing there wasn't a question about was that this team needed a win. And so for all of those reasons, I identified this as a must win. Went on a UCF podcast. Shout out to Sons of UCF who cover the Knights for the 365 Sports Newsletter, and told them that I thought Baylor was going to win this game, and partially it was homecoming week, and that also made this more important, and it was also a home game, and that made this more important. It's also like, hey, if you don't win this game, suddenly you might not make a bowl game, and that was very important. Not so much staying alive in the Big 12 race. That's completely out the window at this point for both of these teams and has been for a couple of weeks, but this was important for Dave Aranda. This is important for a lot of reasons. This is really important for morale. This was a must win. And I'm glad to be here today and to be talking about a win that wasn't narrow and it wasn't unimpressive. It was, in fact, the most fun I think people have had at McLean in quite some time. It was a defiant win. It was an emphatic win. It was a dominant win. It was a 30-3 win over the Knights on Saturday at McLean Stadium. And a show put on that had to feel really cathartic, I think, for this football team and for this coaching staff. Jumped out to a fast start, which when have we ever said that on this podcast? Granted, we haven't been doing it a very long time, but I don't recall saying that really at all this year. But they jumped out to a fast start, and it wasn't some super points explosion or anything like that. It was just a methodical, dominant win, and that's something that we have not seen from this team in a really long time. So a bit surprised that UCF did put up more of a fight, but kind of knowing what Baylor was facing, not within those walls, but just externally, you knew that it was make or break. Like, you're either going to show some heart, you're going to go beat a team that you should be better than on paper, or you're going to fall into the same trap, slow start, let it remain close, and then bungle a play here or there and lose a horrific game that I still maintain, had they lost, would have maybe resulted in us talking about an opening at Baylor and like the 12th or 13th head coach opening occurring this year. Fortunately for Dave Aranda and company, we are not talking about that. I still wonder about the long-term future. I wonder about the short-term future, but I do know that was staved off at least somewhat by this 30-3 win on Saturday. So it was all Bears. Sawyer Robertson, not the craziest, most record-breaking type of performance, but just a really solid game from Sawyer Robertson. Held on to the football, most importantly. Also 3 TDs through the air, 29 of 40, good completion percentage, nearly 300 yards. It's a very solid game for QB1. 150 yards on the ground. Robertson supplying a few of those yards, but mostly Caden Knighton with a 100-yard game. Great to see as the young freshman from Oklahoma continues to really boost his stock and continue to get more experience, and now a 100-yard game under his belt. So what an accomplishment that is. Very, very cool. Also had a 22-yard reception as well in this game. So Caden Knighton, one of those names down the stretch here that's becoming a focal point and a very important part of this program. But you get your first 100-yard game. That is a big accomplishment. So congratulations to Caden Knighton. But 150, that's like the spot that's like the bare minimum that you want to hit as a team. So they got to that on 39 carries. Check the box next to that one. And then receiving wise, I mean, Michael Trigg, I was asked what players to watch out for by the UCF guys, and Sawyer Robertson's the obvious, like, duh. But Michael Trigg was the other name that came out of my mouth pretty immediately. 82 yards for him on 5 catches and a touchdown as well. And he is just having a phenomenal year, one of the best years by a tight end in the entire country, and certainly in Baylor history, as he is going to hold all the single-season tight end records when all is said and done. But now 600-plus yards for him on the year, 6 touchdowns as well for the senior transfer. And he has been money since he arrived in Waco last season, but this year especially a major security blanket and a major weapon for the Bears. It wasn't all without turnovers. I did mention Sawyer Robertson hanging on the football. He did have the lost fumble, so I do mention that. I was speaking more to interceptions, which have become kind of commonplace. But there was the Sawyer Robertson fumble, so it wasn't all perfect. But for an offense that has mostly been good and has been hurt as much as anything by their defense at times, although they've had their own fair share of struggles, Robertson in particular, this was a nice game to see. And it was a nice performance in front of that home crowd. But this was really, when it boiled down to it, all about the defense, giving up just 3 points there in the second quarter, a complete shutout in the first, third, and fourth frames, a complete shutout in the second half. Just beautiful stuff from this Baylor defense. And it's like I was having the same conversation about UCF and various other conversations we're having about Baylor. The one thing you can't explain is how you can have a defense that is not very good and a head coach whose name is Dave Aranda. It just doesn't add up. Why would you have Cliff Kingsbury or any noted offensive mind as your coach and have a struggling offense? You wouldn't. It wouldn't make sense, and that would be a big red flag. And so for Baylor to struggle is one thing, but Baylor to struggle defensively it's quite another issue at hand. And so for that side of the football, to flex its muscle was very important and very exciting to see that as we get into a stretch here where, look, there's just 3 games to go. They're not going to Arlington play for a Big 12 title. There's just too many scenarios, and it's not 0, but it might as well be. But they are very much in line to maybe go 8-4 again, which would be like maybe the bare minimum expectation, but the expectation still as opposed to maybe what you're thinking going into the season, as opposed to 6-6 or 7-5, which that wouldn't feel good. That one extra game, that 8-4 would feel a little bit better. Still not what you were anticipating mostly from the Baylor fandom and this team rolling into this season, but would be a really nice way to close the year. One step at a time, of course. They're coming off 2 straight losses, so just to win a game feels pretty good, and we don't want to make everything so big picture. But this was just this school, this program, this fan base just needed some positivity and a win, and they got that on Saturday. And for the defense to be the driving force in why they got that, I think was just really refreshing. So big-time performance there by the defense. DJ Coleman and Jacob Redding, both with interceptions for the Bears. And I think that there's still a lot of questions about what all this looks like at the end of the season, into the offseason, and then especially heading into the next season. But I am at least interested to see how they close this thing on out. And I feel a lot better about this podcast having come off of a win over UCF, because if we had returned from 3 straight losses and a loss to UCF, it's one thing to lose to TCU on the road. It's another thing to lose to Cincinnati, a top 25 Cincinnati on the road. It would have been another thing entirely to lose to UCF on homecoming at home, obviously. So glad they got to avoid that conversation, and I think we would have been talking about a head coaching opening. So that's for another time. maybe years from now, maybe a month from now. I don't know. I'm still keeping it as a better than zero chance, but it's much lower chance than it would have been had they lost to UCF. So now get a little bit of a breather. Their second bye week, no game to worry about this week. Get the injured healthy as you possibly can for these last 3 weeks and use every bit of practice time you can to get ready for the buzzsaw that'll be rolling into McLean Stadium here in a couple weeks, that being the Utah Utes, who have absolutely been thrashing people ever since their loss to BYU in the Holy War, and a team who we'll see kind of how things go this weekend around the Big 12. They don't play. They are also great. They get 2 weeks to prepare for Baylor, but they are still very much in the thick of things when it comes to the conference race, along with Houston and Cincinnati and Texas Tech, and yes, even Arizona State and TCU. They're sitting there with 2 losses, so still a way for them to get in. They need some scenarios to fall their way. But when they return in a couple weeks, they should have still a glimmer of hope to be in the Big 12 title game. And plus, they're Utah. They're nasty and they're tough, and their fans talk a little bit too much online about how great they are. But this team is really, really good, and so that'll be quite the challenge for Baylor. And I think what I was getting at is Utah will have some extra motivation in what they're trying to still accomplish when that game takes place. So the Bears better strap them up and get ready. But in the meantime, enjoy this win for a couple of days. Enjoy a little bit of free time with this second and final bye week, and then get ready for us to enjoy this stretch run. But they really needed this one, or else this would have been a much, much more dire podcast leading into the bye week, and I think the conversation will be a lot different. So we'll see what that conversation looks like on the other side, as the next time we meet next Tuesday. We'll be talking Baylor and Utah. It'll be the 7-2 Utes, 4-2 in the league, at the 5-4 and 3-3 in the Big 12 Baylor Bears. But until then, until that November 15th contest we get to preview, enjoy your week, everybody. And please hit that like and subscribe button, and subscribe to the 365 Sports newsletter. You can do so at 365sports.video. That's 365sports.video. Look for the little search bar, put your email address in, and it'll be delivered to your inbox each Wednesday mid-afternoon around lunchtime or so. You can get a glimpse and a look and a preview of all 16 teams in the Big 12 in both video and written form to select from, kind of like a sampler platter at your own choosing. Again, 365sports.video. That's where you can find me talking Baylor and writing about Baylor, and also a lot of other cool stuff as well. So until then, a good week for the Bears. Enjoy that one, folks, and let's see if they can't turn around and get bowl eligible here. Not the main goal, but a goal that you want to check no matter what. Certainly, it beats the alternative. Until next time, Baylor, Utah, right around the corner. Enjoy the bye week, everybody. I'm Craig Smoak, and this has been the 365 Sports Newsletter, Baylor Edition.